Hello, everyone. Today we'll be talking about the assignment for the week and the lesson for the week of April 20th, 2020. As you can see, we will be starting the unit of genetics. I know that we've had some background information about it. I know that you've studied some genetics in middle school. However, I want to, start this in a little bit of a different way. When I started thinking about virtual school, my biggest goal or target for you guys, learning target, was that you have the closest experience to traditional school as possible. And what I mean by traditional is not the, boring part, the not so fun part, but actually, no, the fun part we used to have in class, the actual interaction and the learning. So, I want to help you as much as I can, and I hope that you find today's lesson helpful. You can always give me feedback and send me emails or make comments on the lesson, and let me know how you like it, or if you prefer, other ways of learning virtually through videos and articles. So, what we're studying this week is inheritance and variation of traits. This is a big topic in, the world of genetics. And what we're going to do, we're going to touch upon the basics through an interesting phenomenon. We've always started looking at a phenomenon in our class, and we'll do that even virtually right now. This is one of your performance expectations in your standards. So by the end of this unit, we're hoping that we'll be able to apply some statistics and probability to explain variation distribution of expressed traits in a population. So maybe you want to come back to that at the end of the lesson and see, do some kind of self-assessment. Were you able to achieve that goal? So again, what are we doing this week? You will be turning in the assignment for the week on a Google Doc. In order to start that, right now you should open a Google document using your school's email, write your name, hour, and date on the top, and write the title genetics. So during this video, you are given instructions from myself. Make sure that you give it enough time and follow the slides video step by step. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to show you, how to do that. But in the future, I'll rely that you'll be able to do that on your own. I'll show you how to open a Google document and get it started. Whenever you feel like, the teacher or the video is going ahead of you, click pause. You will need to do that frequent times. This lesson was built in a way where, you might need a few days to work on it. I suggest that you do not take more than 30 minutes a day, for biology, and it will be more than enough. Maybe within a couple days, you'll be done with the whole assignment. However, take your time. And coming back to it, you'll be able to come back with a fresh mind. So let's do that. I'm going to escape from my slides, and I will go ahead and go to my Gmail as if it's yours. And real quick, I'm going to go to my Docs, Google Docs, and I'm going to start a new blank document. And then I'm going to call it week of 4.20 genetics, and you'll put your name. So, you'll put John Smith, whatever your name is, and maybe your hour. You're also going to do that right here. So name, hour, the date, and you'll add a title. Genetics. There are 4 items that you will complete on the Google document, and the 5th item is the survey. So you'll take that after you're done with the Google Doc. So you'll put item 1, and you'll answer the questions here, whatever. We'll see as we get to it. And then when you're done, you may either get a shareable link and share the link with me by copying it, or you may want to download it. So file, download, the file, and you'll upload it to the Google Classroom. Please, please, please try your best to upload it to the Google Classroom. If you're having difficulty, you can let me know. You can also turn it into a PDF document. Whatever format works for you will work for me. Okay, so let me go back. So now, I'm going to actually leave this up and open, and I'm going to go back to the presentation mode. Again, you're putting your your name, your hour, and the date, as well as the title, genetics. So as we go through the assignment, I want you to create a box for your, glossary, your genetics glossary, or your words to define. And remember, in our class, we always define in our own words. So what I'm going to do here before item one, I'm going to insert, and you don't have to do that, but Miss Bezzy is extra, so I'll do that. I'm going to insert maybe a table. Okay, so I'll call it genetics glossary, and I'll start adding my words and definitions here. So word one, and then I'll define it in my own words. Very important that it's my own. Word two, and I don't get this from anyone. I'll do it myself because it will show up during the presentation, and it's pretty much self-explanatory. Okay, so we're done with the genetics glossary. You'll keep on adding to it as I ask you to add words during the presentation, so please make sure you pay attention to it. Okay, we got to the first item. So I want you to look at this picture and make some observations. So this is a very good time for you to hit the pause button, after you read the instructions. So over here it says that we're introducing the phenomenon where we have these, twin girls. These girls are actually twin sisters. And, just like my twins, they're twins too. So, I found it interesting and pretty cool to start, this unit with. What you need to do is copy and answer the questions below and to item one. So you go ahead and type them and answer the questions. Now, after you do that, you'll see, more pictures of the twins, and these are their parents. This is their mom, and this is their dad. So I'm not sure if this will help you, clear out some of the assumptions that you have. Please make sure, though, that you answer item one before you look at the pictures, because you'll be able to answer it better before you kind of find what's going on. Now, when you look at the parents, think about, well, okay, does this clarify some of the questions that I had? Does this make more sense now, or does it add to my confusion? These are some other examples of, twins that look very different. And so what we're trying to find out right now, how can people be not even twins, brothers and sisters, and look that different if they come from the same mom and dad? What's the explanation? So here's a quote that I found very interesting, and it says, science defines you by your DNA, whereas society defines you by your skin color. So I really like that, and I wanted to throw it in there, and it's kind of like food for thought that I wanted you to think about. Now, usually we do this in class where you get pictures of your parents and of yourself, and you think about, okay, well, do they look like me or they don't? Which part of me looks like which parent that I have? But we're going to do it virtually now, and I hope that it will work out. So for item two, you'll copy the title, Photo Project Looks Alike. Add the table you've completed to the Google Doc you created. So you can see on the right side, it says, the table says the feature. Is it more like your mom, more like your dad? So maybe pick 10 different features. And like, for example, I picked, that I think that I have a small nose. Is it more like my dad or like my mom? It's more like my mom, so I'm going to put an X there. Go ahead and put 10 features after you add a table. And, after you're done with that, you're going to look at the question written in red. It says both of Miss Bezzy's parents are medium to tall. Her grandparents are also medium height. Well, how come she's short? So if both of my parents are medium to tall and my grandparents are also medium, then how come, I consider myself short. I'm 5'1", so that's pretty short on the lower end. So give me two possible explanations. You're going to, after you're done with the table, you'll copy the question and write down two possible explanations. Again, by now, if you're done with this, you've done 2 out of 4 items, and you don't have to complete this today. You can hit the pause button and come back to it later. And I just showed you how to insert a table, so you can easily do that. Next, item 3, the easiest thing, we're going to do a circle map. But this time, we're trying to think about, okay, what are these things that we're getting from our parents? What do we know about the word trait? So, don't search that up, because I don't want the definition to the word trait. I want to know what you know. What do you know about the word trait? So go ahead and insert maybe 2 circles, one small, one big, in your Google Doc, and then add a text box and add some of the things that you know about traits. What does it remind you of? I want to see at least 10 words, and let me show you how to insert the circles. So, you've done first item 2 with the table and the questions, and now we're on item 3. And of course, yours is going to be 10 times neater than mine, right? And I'm going to insert, I don't see where the circle is. See here? No. Drawing. Okay, that's okay. That's fine. So even if you can't see a circle, just, give me 10 words that remind me of the term trait. And maybe you tell me what they are, first, second, third, whatever. 10 words. Okay, so we started thinking, okay, what does the word trait mean? What do traits mean? So now we're actually going to try to explore that through an inventory that we do with our classmates. And you might be wondering, well, how am I going to do that with my classmates if they're not even next to me? You'll find out within this and next week. There are 3 steps to this process. So we're now on item 4, and we're going to call this simulation and inventory of my traits. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to add the table on the next slide to your Google Doc. So as you can see, the next slide has a table. If you want, you can pause that and add it to the Google Doc, or wait until I come back to it later. And then after that, I will be talking about each trait. You will mark whether it's dominant or recessive from my explanation. So make sure you're listening attentively. And then you're going to put a check, or, you type down which phenotype do you show. So here's an opportunity for a word that we can add to the glossary. As a matter of fact, we can add 2 words. The first word is trait, and the second word is phenotype. So we've got phenotype and we've got traits. And I want you to define traits in your own words. And I wouldn't do that right now. I would do the definitions after I'm done with the whole assignment, because this way I have a better understanding of what these terms mean. And when it says phenotype you show, it means physical characteristic you express. So how does it look like on you? It doesn't have to be something on the outside. It could be anything on the inside. Like, for example, you might have the gene that makes you more prone to being diabetic. Being diabetic is the phenotype. So it's the form of expression of the gene. It starts with pH, just like physical. So it's the type of physical appearance that this gene expresses itself. Okay, and we'll get back to it later. Then under the table that we created, we're going to answer the questions below. Obviously, you can't answer these questions. Don't do that now. You might want to come back in the video and copy them down, but do not answer the questions now until you're done with the inventory. Okay. So again, we will be studying 9 traits in total. I don't have all 9 on this table because my screen wouldn't fit a longer table, let's say. So make sure that you include all 9 that will be included in the video. Make sure that you tell me which form or which phenotype of the trait is dominant and which form or which phenotype is recessive. And then tell me which one do you have? Do you have the dominant or the recessive one? Okay, and we're going to start talking about the different traits. So the first one that I want to talk about is earlobes. What type of earlobes do you have? Some people have attached and some people have detached earlobes. If yours are detached or if they hang free, then you're one of the people who have the dominant trait. So unattached earlobes are actually dominant, and attached earlobes where there's no gap between the earlobe and the side of your jawline, and then that would be your recessive trait. So some people say that this trait is controlled by a single gene. However, there's no study that says the opposite. So it's it hasn't been proven that earlobes are affected by the environment. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Can you roll your tongue? And I know that a lot of you right now, which is what I'm doing, are trying to roll your tongue. So here, try to do it before we talk about it. So if you were able to curl up the sides of your tongue in the form of a tube shape, it means you have the gene responsible for tongue rolling. It is controlled by a single gene, and it is a dominant allele. And when I say allele, that's a form of a gene. So, I know from middle school, that usually a gene can be represented by letters. For example, if I'm talking about the letter T for tongue, it could be uppercase T or lowercase t. Whether it's an uppercase or a lowercase, each type of gene, if it's a dominant gene, we don't call it a dominant gene, we call it a dominant allele. So an allele is a type of gene. And like you guessed, you're thinking right now and you guessed it right. Yes, we should be adding the word allele to our glossary because that's a very important word. So again, now we have about 4 words and they all sound so similar, but they are in fact different terms. We have the term trait. We have the phenotype. And trait and phenotype are kind of very close. We also have the gene. The gene can be of 2 types, dominant and recessive. And we call these types of genes alleles. Okay. The next trait that I want to talk about is having dimples. So dimples are small natural indentations on your cheeks. They can appear on one or both sides. They sometimes change with age, and some people are born with dimples that disappear when they're adults. Some people even develop dimples later on in their childhood. Dimples, however, are very, very heritable, which means that people who have dimples tend to have all of their kids with dimples. And so, if you're guessing that dimples are a dominant trait, which means having one copy of the dimples allele is enough to show or express dimples, that is correct. You guessed it right. So, not only are dimples dominant, but also we just defined what dominant means. Dominant is the overpowering allele. It doesn't mean it's stronger. It only means that when it shows up or when it's present, it's always going to be expressed. So you only need one form or one copy of a dominant allele for it to be expressed. Whereas in a recessive, you need both copies. So maybe you want to add dominant and recessive to your glossary. Okay. The next trait we want to talk about is right-handedness. Being right or left-handed describes your preference on whether you like using your left or right hand for many activities such as writing, throwing a ball, kicking a soccer ball, whatever it is. About 10% of people only are left-handed. But the number, varies from different cultures. Some cultures have only 0.5% of their people being left-handed, and some cultures as much as 25% of the people are left-handed. Being left-handed is the recessive trait, and being right-handed is the dominant trait, or is a trait determined by a dominant allele, let's say. The next trait we want to talk about is that your type of hair, having a naturally curly, straight, or wavy hair. And obviously, we're not talking about the hair you get after straighten your hair. No, it's the hair you are born with. A lot of people confuse curly and wavy, and you can see that wavy right here is having these very tight locks. Having a certain type of hair is a little bit complicated, more complicated or more complex than just dominant recessive. There are obviously two alleles, one that's dominant and one that's recessive. However, if you have both dominants, you definitely have the curly hair. If you have both recessives, you have the straight hair. And if you have wavy, then you have one dominant and one recessive. So it kind of merges, it kind of does something in between. The next trait I want to talk about is having dimples, or I'm sorry, having a dimpled chin. So some people also call it a cleft chin, and it's kind of like an indentation at the center of your chin. It's as a matter of fact a result of a genetic defect that causes the left and the right side of your jawbone muscles not to fuse together. And I have a cleft chin, which means my right and my left jaw haven't completely fused. Isn't that cool? And it's funny because my twin daughters, one of them has a dimpled chin like me, and one of them doesn't, like her dad. So that's pretty cool. This is obviously determined when, during your development in your mother's womb. Dimpled chins, however, are dominant over non-dimpled. Next trait is having allergies. And I know a lot of people do, and some people don't have any allergies at all. And when we're talking about allergies, we're talking about anything from allergies to clothes, food, medicine, certain scents. All of these allergies, have kind of started environmentally because they were provoked by environmental factors. But there's a lot of evidence that suggests that, there are people who do have allergies have genes that make them more likely or more predisposed to show these allergies. So if you are somebody who has the tendency to develop allergy, then you have the dominant allele. Next trait we want to talk about is whether you have or whether you can interlock your hands with your left or the right thumb on top. So what I would like you to do right now, please, I'd like you to, separate your palms and then try to put them back together real quick. And I'm going to do that and you'll hear me. So putting your hands back together, look at your hands, or when you interlock your hands, which thumb goes on the top? Is it the right or is it the left? If your right thumb, when on the top, it means you have the dominant allele. This is an interesting one because each year I've had a student or two that have figured out in my class that they are colorblind. And usually colorblindness shows up in boys. So right now, if you look at the circle on the left side of the screen, if you can't see the number in the center, it means you could be colorblind, okay? And that's okay because a lot of people have different variations of colorblindness. Colorblindness doesn't mean you can only see black and white. It could mean that, you can't see certain shades of color. And as you can see on the right side, colorblindness shows up a lot more in males than in females. So right here, the mom is a carrier. She carries it on her X chromosome. She gives it to her daughter. However, she didn't give anything to her son because he got her purple X. Right here, the dad is a carrier, has only one allele, but because the dad has only one X chromosome, the colorblindness shows up. So, I'll get into X-linked traits later on in more detail, but, colorblindness is determined by a recessive trait. However, it's on the X chromosome. Males have one X chromosome, so it shows up immediately in males, if present. And this is more examples of, you can whether you can see the numbers or the shapes, and you can test yourself that way. Okay, the last item that you'll be working on is a survey that you'll be taking for the traits that you just completed on the table. So I'm gonna, escape my slides, and I will go to Google Classroom, and you should do the same. After I go to Google Classroom, let's say I go to 6 hour, and it says here that, you should be uploading your Google Doc in this post, and you should be taking the survey here. So if you click on the survey right here, it tells me all the students who didn't take it yet, because obviously, nobody's seen my post yet. But you get in, you click on instructions, and you click on Google Forms, and you take the survey. So after we've surveyed everybody in all the classes, we'll go back to this data, and we'll see, how we'll put it to use. And we'll talk about it next week. This is it for this week. See you next week. I hope you found this helpful. Make sure that you turn on your completed Google Doc to your Google Classroom. I will see first, second, and fourth hour Tuesday at 6:15, fifth and sixth hour Wednesday at 6:15, and everybody can show up Thursday at 6:15. You need to attend at least one of these 3 Google Meets for any questions that you may have. I won't answer any questions from now till then, because I really want you to, try on your own first. So I want to see effort and attempts to listen to the video, to follow the instructions, to attempt the document. Save all your questions and ask them then. I'll see you. Bye-bye.